Welcome to Channel AMEC, your insight to the Australian visa system. Good day everyone, my name is Carl Young, your online YouTube visa consultant. Are you interested in migrating to Australia? Why don't you consider to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell on the side so once we have all the updates and news, you'll be the first one getting all the insight. Alright, today's video would like to discuss in regards to what you have clicked into the thumbnail, talking about self-sponsorship. Now there has been numbers of information out there publicly on the website, so a lot of people have a lot of doubts. Now first of all, self-sponsorship is a very tough topic. There has been people done it, but it's actually very complicated, and very limited people can actually get approval. Now it was open for such concept of, so what is self-sponsorship? It basically is you started your own business and you sponsor yourself as the business owner under, well, could be a general manager or whatever the role that is, and then you continue on with the employment sponsor visa, and perhaps 2 years later you transfer into permanent residency. So that was the concept of self-sponsorship. Now that was open back in the days when the subclass 457 was still there, so a lot of people utilize this way to actually come to Australia and get approved. I still recall I've got a client who manufacture those swimming pools filtering machines. So he actually stocked them and started established a company in Australia with a warehouse, stock all these filter machines, and obviously sponsor himself in order to actually continue on business development of those swimming pool filter systems on sale to the retail, wholesale, and to the public in Australia. Now since then, the change of 457 has taken place, and also the introduction of the 482 visa. The self-sponsorship has become very hard. I have only seen handful, very limited people to actually get this self-sponsorship. But let's talk about and have a little explanation into what the detailed policy is like. Now I understand a lot of other countries, for example, perhaps I'm not too sure with their legislation, but I know, for example, in Japan, US, Canada, or UK or Europe, you could actually do the similar visa where you start your own business and then you sponsor yourself. However, in the past 20 years, what happened is a lot of people utilize this way to actually prolong their stay in Australia, and not intentionally with the genuine intention to actually build a real business. And there has been, obviously, a politician came out complaining, discussing about the negative issue about self-sponsoring, so they actually make it very hard. So people asking me whether there is a self-sponsorship available in Australia. Well, usually I'll say no, but in fact there is, but it's actually very hard. So I'll usually say no, because there's not real option to explore with. But because I have received some queries and emails and comments, why not just talk about it in this video? So I'll quickly go through this with you. Now what I have done, rather than going to the legend com, where it's, you know, tiny font and words, I copy them and put it into I think this way is easier for me to explain it. So obviously this is directly copy from Legend.com, which is the policy and law and legislation database from the Department of Immigration. So it's easier to read it this way, because you know, we're on YouTube. I don't want you to read very tiny words there. So okay, the policy 3.4.7.4, it talks about a position created to secure migration outcome. What does that mean? That means the position is specifically designed in order to for someone to be nominated, it's not a genuine what we're trying to say. It's not a genuine position. The position is specifically designed and created just to have a visa purpose. Now, this is against the law. And that's what I'm saying. There is a possibility of a self-sponsorship, but if any of this element has been identified, then the self-sponsorship application will be what? Refused. And that's why I'm saying it's very, very hard, because let's talk about it. So if the DM is the decision maker, that means the immigration officer, has concern about the position has been created to facilitate the entry and stay of nominees. A nominee usually will be the applicant, and one or more affected below. Apply further assessment taking account the additional guidance below on the assessing genuineness. That's the keywords. They want to know whether it's genuine position. So I'll give you some of the example at the end of this video. So if they found any of these items, so first one is the nominee is a relative or personal associate to the officer of a sponsoring business. So if you are a relative or if you're a friend of the business owner or director, then they will have that red alert goes on. And then they'll start assessing you whether this is actually position created just to help the relative, just to help a friend to actually have a visa and prolong in Australia. So they will take that into the case. The nominee is a director or owner. That's straight away. If you're an owner of business, I'm sorry, you cannot, well, you will be under a very detailed assessments and being suspected that because you're the owner of the business, then you created this position to sponsor yourself. Well, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? If you're an owner of business and you're not Australian, or you do not hold Australian permanent residency, and you want to run the business, for sure you want to do that because you want to continue and genuinely promote and build a business. But that's what I'm saying. The self-sponsorship won't work in Australia. Because of this one, it's just, how would that go? How would you argue that you are sponsoring yourself and you're still genuinely, you want to build a business, but you won't pass the genuine test because of this item here? See, that's what I meant, okay? The nominee is currently in Australia, and nominee's immigration history in Australia suggests that the primary motive to stay in Australia on any type of visa. So they basically lodge any type of visa, just wanted to stay, okay? So that could be the director as well, you know? I mean, they, the usual way that the immigration officer will counter back is, well, you can still have your business in Australia, but you can, employ a general manager in Australia to actually operate the business for you, right? I think sometimes the Australians should really think this way. If an Australian wanted to go abroad, go to another country and start a business in that country, and that country helps this Australian businessman to actually give them the visa and start and continue to operate the business, wouldn't that be great? Or if you're an Australian, you go to another country and that country tells you, well, piss off, you can start your business here, but you need to employ our locals and you need to go back to Australia. Will they be happy? So anyway, that's for us to actually discuss. Anyway, I think there has been people, obviously, there has been people abuse the use of the self-sponsorship, that's for sure. And there has been abusive conducts in any type of visa as well. So that shouldn't negate. So I'm really against this kind of policy. I'm really for the self-sponsorship. But again, it just won't work at this stage. So I don't know if there's going to be any Australian lawyers or politicians to go try to change this law, but in this time, because they also Australia has a Labor Party, they want to protect their labor, they want to protect their local workers. So I think this law will be there just for the sake of elections. Okay, the business has been existed for a very short period of time. The business created in the last 3 to 6 months appear to have just been created for the purpose of migration. Yeah, well, yes. well, if you come to Australia, you found something or opportunity, you really genuinely you see there's an opportunity to start a business, then it's a startup. Now, what's wrong with startup? It's lawful, but if it's just been created in the last 6 months, then they will put some suspicious eyes upon your business and yourself. The proposed salary is significantly lower than industry standard or is above 250,000. This does not appear to be consistent with labor market condition. Now, I'm okay with the proposed salary is significantly lower than industry standard. I'm okay with that, but if the proposed salary is so high, it's above 250,000, then you still not okay with it. You still have, look at this. It's just, if you want to do self-sponsorship, they just don't like it. They just do not like it, okay? That's the way it is, okay? The business is relatively small turnover and could indicate that the nominated salary provided, it will be difficult to support numbers of proposed employees at the business. Well, this is fair. This is fair, right? You know, if the injected capital of the business is only $100,000 and you're telling people that you want to sponsor 2 more employees plus another 3 locals, it's just not possible. How are you going to run it? You know, at least you get a jackpot or, you know, lotto one, right? Okay, that's fair. The business does not employ any or employ a few Australian employees. Now, again, if you just a startup, you know how people, a lot of tech people, they start out at Silicon Valley. They're only working at their garage. So the law here in Australia just do not promote innovation and startup, tech business, because you just cannot afford to employ any Australian employees. So again, that's what I'm talking about. You know, if you go to Japan and if you go to US, they are visas allowing people to start their business and manage their own business and sponsor them themselves. They're promoting business and entrepreneur, but entrepreneur, the definition in Australia is way different than how they define in US and Japan, in other places around the world. So you just have to know it's really different. And if you read all these through, you will think this is extremely difficult. Okay, there's evidence the business have been received or will receive payment nominees lodging nomination. In this case, refer to matter relevant section of Australian Border Force to determine if any action. So what they're trying to do is find out there has been anyone paying the business to actually get sponsored, which is against the law. We have done a similar a particular video talking about this. So it's against the law. It's a criminal conduct. You cannot buy yourself in just for a job and get a visa. That's just against the law, and just won't work. But that's not what we talking about today. It's all about what we talk about is the self-sponsorship. So they're assessing the genuineness. Now there's a note down here. Let me have a read. It says the above setting does not prevent individual from sponsoring themselves. That is self-sponsorship. However, in such case needed another reason for position being created. It cannot just be facilitate long-term stay and create pathway to permanent program, permanent migration program. So it just doesn't make any sense. If you read this, if you want to self-sponsorship, how can you get around this? The nominee of director, owner of sponsoring business, and what they're talking about, there has to be another reason for the position being created. Now, if it's an innovative startup technology, now would the immigration know what sort of technology that is? And you want to start up in business, but the problem here is they still put a suspicious, because the business just startup is less than 6 months old, and they will likely to, refuse you due to this as well, right? So it's just very extremely hard, I mean, they're probably looking for Einstein, but there's no Einstein in 2024 anymore. So it's just extremely difficult. That's what I'm saying. The success rate is so low that I usually would just tell people there is no self-sponsorship in Australia. Now, assessing the genuineness, it's pretty simple. We can quickly just go through it. So check the duty and the role. So you don't want to sponsor the IT people in a restaurant. Again, that's just a very straightforward, specific thing. They're talking about demonstrate the position. They want to look into the business organization, what sort of service that they provide, and it matches to the nomination. So it's a genuine stuff, business hours, additional staff required. So this is all general stuff. Oh, my key here is talking about the first page here that we had just gone through it. Now, just to summarize this and provide you an insight now with example how a self-sponsorship will actually work is that you really need to, we're talking about that extra reasons, okay? You really need to identify, for example, what I have provided information in regards to those swimming pool filtering systems. Now, you really need to demonstrate that there is no such items being serviced in Australia, and there is no one experienced enough to actually be employed and do the job. You need to show those kind of reasons. Then you are the only one in this world, in Australia, to actually do the job. You see how difficult that is? It's just very, very hard. We're in 2024. What I'm trying to say is immigration officer could always come back and say this. Well, we got a lot of Aussie here. You can employ them and you can go back to your home country and they can be employed as the general manager or CEO of your company and continue to do the business development. How do you argue that these local Aussies just cannot understand how to sell your product or services? That is the hard part. So just to conclude this, the simplest way, there's no self-sponsorship in Australia, not until the politician or immigration come out and announce something really, they talk about self-sponsorship. Anyways, if you have more question query, more than welcome to leave comment right down below, and I'll see you next video. Goodbye.